Me personally, I always felt that the Phoenix Suns of '07 was the most robbed team I can think of in recent memory because of the NBA rules. I know the Knicks and the Heat thing in '97, but the Phoenix Suns story was worse because Steve Nash was a back to back MVP. He finished second. And remember, the Spurs went on to beat Cleveland to win the championship. So imagine if Phoenix goes and plays Cleveland in the finals, and how things would be so different for Steve Nash's career. Because think about it, you're an MVP back to back winner, and you never got to the finals, and you were that close, and it became because Robert Ory initiated contact when losing them for 18 seconds, which cost you your sixth man. Your starters went on alphabetical order. You remember when David Stern did the alphabetical order thing? It cost the Phoenix Suns a trip to the finals. They lost two games. That to me is one of the most outrageous things I've ever seen. To this day, I still talk about it because that Suns team, Dan Tony was so close. And then, Steve Nash finished in second place to his former teammate Dirk Nowitzki for MVP. Imagine if he almost was a three-time straight league MVP, and that reputation of because they jumped the bench, they couldn't play. I think the Phoenix Suns team in '07 was the most robbed team I can think of when you consider the circumstances, what was at stake, the history that had been made, and then I think about how close they were. And what ended up happening is the Spurs beat Cleveland and LeBron James to win a championship, which Tony Parker, by the way, was the MVP, who was a guard. And you can debate who you think was a better guard totality with Steve Nash and Tony Parker. Debate that one and let's see who you end up with. But I thought about how the Suns got dealt an unfair hand, alphabetical order by David Stern. To me, that's the most outrageous ending to a playoff series because it cost them two straight games. It was just like, you gotta be kidding. And they never recovered from that again. Ironically, the Spurs would go on and be champions a couple more times. As a matter of fact, after '07, they went to they went to, um, let me get it right. They lost to the Heat 13 and they won at 14. So think about it. But they had won, but that whole thing was crazy. Phoenix never rebounded. Nash played a couple more years, lost Western Conference playoffs, and then a return with the Lakers. And he wasn't just a shell of himself. But imagine if Phoenix had a won. Imagine if D'Antoni had a won. And we'll never know what that 2007 situation would have been like if it wasn't for that tacky turkey rule. So Cat's told not to come off the bench. And I still think the Phoenix Suns 2007 team got robbed. Buddy of mine was talking about that for years about that. That was one of the most strangest, saddest endings to a season because the Suns had been peak form and they looked like they were definitely destined for something. You think about it, you have a two-time league MVP and a guy who finishes in second place. He's top two, regardless if you agree with the voting or not. And all you got to show for it is that you get ran out on some bogus because alphabetical order, because guys jumped the bench, and the Spurs end up winning. And how do you ever recover from that? And that's one of the most strangest, saddest endings to a potential run I've ever seen. I think the Phoenix Suns in '07 got robbed worse. Robert Ory was smart. He got them to jump. Think about it. One man did all that damage, and it cost the Suns a run. Who knows what happens against Cleveland in the finals? But it will never know. And maybe that'll look at Steve Nash's career a lot differently. Because imagine if he wins a ring with those two league MVPs, is he considered a top 5 or 6 point guard? Or is he a guy that we still kind of look at with an asterisk? That's something to think about. What does it do for Maury Stoudemire's career if he goes and wins? Sean Marion, Mike D'Antoni. We'll never know because it never came to pass. But how close they were. And all because of that rule that was implemented by David Stern, the Phoenix Suns didn't get a chance to get to the show. So we'll never know what could have been. What do you think would have happened if the Suns had gone and played Cleveland in the finals? Do you think they win? Do you think Steve Nash becomes a finals MVP? And what's his legacy? What becomes D'Antoni's? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please select, subscribe, welcome thoughts, comments, and I do respond. Thank you. Wash your hands. Keep your mind clear. Watch out for another. And share the video if you like. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free. And also, do you think the Spurs get 5 rings? Because that was a pivotal turn. And does Phoenix get in the way of the Spurs and Lakers run in that particular era? Let's talk about it. I'm out.